Yo, what's up everyone, it's Sasiru here and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into the world of chess with a super comprehensive guide 30 principles for openings, middle game and end game. Whether you're just starting out or you're already crushing it at your local club, mastering these principles will definitely level up your game. Let's get started. Alright guys, chess principle number 1 is about as basic as it gets. Control the center. It might seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many players, especially beginners, underestimate the importance of those central squares. Look, in the opening, you gotta fight for the center. Plain and simple. Your pawns are your first line of defense, but don't be afraid to bring out those knights and bishops to back them up. Remember, the player who controls the center controls the board. Okay, principle number 2 is all about development. And trust me, this one is huge. You can't win with all your pieces stuck on the back rank, right? Get those knights and bishops off the bench and onto active squares where they can influence the game. The faster you develop, the faster you can start putting pressure on your opponent. It's like a game of basketball. You gotta get everyone involved. Now this one should be a no-brainer, but you'd be amazed how often people forget about their king. Guys, your king is the most important piece on the board, and if it goes down, it's game over. Early castling is usually the best way to keep your king safe and sound behind a wall of pawns. Don't get caught slipping with your king out in the open. Alright, we're moving on to rooks, and let me tell you, these guys are the heavy artillery of your chess army. You want them lined up, locked and loaded, ready to fire on your opponent. The best way to do that is to connect them. Now, connecting your rooks usually means getting that queen out of the way so they can work together. Trust me, a connected rook battery is a force to be reckoned with. This next principle is all about efficiency in the opening. Every move counts in chess, and you don't want to waste time moving the same piece back and forth like you're playing ping pong. Focus on developing each piece once to its best square, and then move on to the next one. Of course, there are always exceptions, but in general, try to avoid repeating moves in the opening. Now we're getting into some next level stuff. Developing your pieces is great, but developing them with a threat, that's how you put your opponent on the back foot right from the start. Every move should have a purpose. Are you forcing your opponent to defend? Are you gaining space? Think about the impact of your moves and always look for ways to create threats. Chapter 7. Don't grab pawns, yet. I know, capturing pieces is tempting, especially those juicy-looking pawns, but trust me, sometimes the best move is the one you don't make. If grabbing a pawn means falling behind in development, it's usually not worth it. Remember, long-term thinking, my friends. Develop your pieces, control the center, and those pawns will be there later. Chapter 8. Control open files. Let's talk about open files. These are like the highways of the chessboard, and your rooks are the 18-wheelers that want to cruise down them. Placing your rooks on open files gives them maximum power and mobility. They can control a lot of territory and even deliver some devastating attacks. Chapter 9. Avoid premature attacks. Look, I get it. Attacking is fun, it's exciting, it gets the adrenaline pumping. But you know what's not fun? Launching a premature attack and getting completely destroyed because your pieces weren't developed. Patience is key, my friends. Build a solid foundation, develop your pieces, and then unleash those killer attacks. Chapter 10. Coordinate your pieces. Teamwork makes the dream work. Chess is a team sport, people. You can't expect to win with just 1 or 2 superstar pieces. You gotta get everyone working together, coordinating their efforts, and supporting each other. When your pieces are working in harmony, that's when the real magic happens. Chapter 11. Control the center, round 2. We talked about controlling the center in the opening, and guess what? It's just as important in the middle game. In fact, the fight for the center intensifies in the middle game. Use your pieces to control key squares, restrict your opponent's movement, and create opportunities for yourself. Chapter 12. Improve your worst piece, no piece left behind. We all have that one friend who's always lagging behind, right? Well, in chess, sometimes you have a piece that's just not pulling its weight. Take a look at your position and identify your worst placed piece. Can you improve its position? Can you activate it? Don't neglect those underperforming pieces. Chess is a game of exploiting weaknesses, both your own and your opponent's. In the middle game, start looking for ways to create weaknesses in your opponent's position. Can you force pawn weaknesses? Can you drive their king into an exposed position? One of the biggest differences between amateur and professional chess players is the ability to plan ahead. Grandmasters are always thinking several moves ahead, calculating variations, and anticipating their opponent's responses. You don't need to calculate like a computer, but try to develop your planning skills. Tactics are the spice of chess. They're those surprising and often decisive maneuvers that can turn the tide of the game. Keep your eyes peeled for forks, pins, skewers, discovered attacks, and all those other fun tactical motifs. Remember those rooks we talked about earlier? They're still super important in the middle game. Open files give them power and mobility, so keep an eye out for opportunities to open up files and get those rooks activated. Pawns are like the infantry of your chess army. They're small but mighty, but they're also vulnerable. Be careful about creating pawn weaknesses in your own position, like doubled pawns, isolated pawns, or backward pawns. These weaknesses can be exploited by your opponent. I know I sound like a broken record here, but coordination is crucial in every phase of the game, including the middle game. Make sure your pieces are working together, supporting each other, and attacking as a cohesive unit. Exchanging pieces is a normal part of chess, but you should never do it without thinking. Every exchange changes the dynamics of the position. Sometimes it's good to trade pieces, sometimes it's not. Consider the consequences before you make the exchange. Even in the middle game, with all the chaos and excitement, you can never forget about your king. Always be aware of potential threats to your king, and take steps to keep it safe. A well-timed attack can end the game quickly, even if you're up material. Alright, we're entering the endgame now, and things are about to get interesting. In the endgame, the king transforms from a passive observer to an active participant. Don't be afraid to bring your king out of its comfort zone and use it to control squares, shepherd pawns, and even attack. Passed pawns are the heroes of the endgame. These are pawns that have no enemy pawns in their path, and they have the potential to promote to powerful pieces. If you can create and protect a passed pawn, you're well on your way to winning the game. In the endgame, controlling key squares is often the key to victory. Identify the squares that are crucial for your pawn promotion and do everything you can to control them. Your king can play a big role in controlling these squares. Opposition is a powerful endgame concept that allows you to outmaneuver your opponent's king. When kings are in opposition, it means they're facing each other on a file or diagonal with only one square between them. Mastering opposition can give you a decisive advantage in king and pawn endgames. If you're lucky enough to have a material advantage in the endgame, your goal is usually to simplify the position. The fewer pieces on the board, the easier it is to convert your advantage into a win. Don't make things more complicated than they need to be. We've talked about avoiding pawn weaknesses before, but it's even more important in the endgame. Pawn weaknesses can be fatal in endgames, so be very careful not to create any. Yes, I'm saying it again. Coordinate your pieces. Even in the endgame, with fewer pieces on the board, coordination is still essential. Your king, pawns, and remaining pieces need to work together harmoniously to secure the win. In the endgame, the king wants to be in the center of the board where it can control more squares. A centralized king is a powerful king, so try to activate your king and get it to a central position where it can influence the game. Pawns become increasingly valuable in the endgame. They can control squares, restrict the opponent's king, and even promote to powerful pieces. Just like in other phases of the game, planning is crucial in the endgame. Before you make a move, think about what you want to achieve. What's your plan? What's your opponent's plan? Anticipate their moves and try to stay one step ahead. So, there you have it guys. 30 essential chess principles to take your game to the next level. I hope you found this video helpful. Remember, mastering these principles takes time and practice, but the rewards are definitely worth it. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more chess content. Until next time, keep those brains sharp and those pawns moving.